All right. Welcome to the Well Built Podcast. Very exciting episode here today because we are doing our first session of the 2% Decoded series, where we are going to be interviewing business owners and operators from construction companies around the country on what it has taken them to get their businesses into a place of being considered in that top 2% of the industry. And so I'm very excited to welcome on somebody I've told you before I would call a friend here today, but it's the Chief Operating Officer at John W. McDougall, an exterior metal panel and glass and glazing contractor out of Nashville, Tennessee. Chris, welcome.
Hey, thanks, Matt, for having me. One correction, I mean, glass and glazing, maybe not yet, but certainly the future. Metal panel contractor, exteriors contractor, and we dabble in a tiny bit of glass and glazing.
That as I was saying it, I was like, I wonder if he'll want me to say this because I know that it's something that you have on your mind, and so I'm like, and I know we've done some, right? And I know we've done some, so
Yeah, every day it's a little bit more and more going that direction, but certainly we're a exteriors contractor that generally focuses away from the glass and glazing, and certainly not curtain wall contractor. If we do any, it's the smaller stuff.
yeah, yeah. Well, on the metal panel side, I know you guys are doing some unbelievable systems, have full fabrication shop, doing a lot of design assist type of work and all that kind of stuff. And so, why don't you tell us your story? How did you end up at John W. McDougall?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, I think anyone listening can hear the accent. So originally from South Africa, moved over in end of 2017, and um, looking for a job. Uh, I was a contractor in South Africa, a roofing contractor, and we did facades as well. And in leaving South Africa and coming to America, I was like, you know what? I think I would like to be a consultant in the building world rather than a contractor, just because I know how much stress and pain and things the contracting side is. And I thought, well, being a consultant, I can write reports and not with the same level of stress. Um, Building envelope contractor, consultant rather, not management consultant like you, Matt. But after 9 months, 10 months of being a consultant, I quickly found out that I am a contractor through and through.
Mm,
Uh, I didn't get the same joy out of going to a site, taking photos, and having no actual teeth to fix anything, apart from writing a report. So I looked for a job, a project management job with a local glazing contractor in Utah. We were in Utah at the time. And I joined Steel Encounters, and subsequent to that, John W. McDougall approached me to join them as a project executive in the architectural metal side. And I've been here five years now, and yeah, I've risen up through the ranks, and in January was promoted to COO, running both divisions: the processing division, where we make parts and pieces in metal for large OEMs, and then the architectural side, which is the lion's share of the business, which is, as you mentioned, doing large exteriors. Obviously, the biggest claim to fame for John W. McDougall Company is the Epcot ball that we fabricated.
mm.
And now we're fabricating the Titan Stadium, and Crown Core out of Gary, Indiana is installing it. So very proud of that partnership. But yeah, do a lot of supply and install projects all over the country, a lot of data centers now. Yeah. So that's kind of how I got you, kind of what we do, answering two questions in one go.
Yeah, no, it's good. It's good. And yeah, and Chris and I met probably, I think, I don't know, 5 years ago now at a National Glazing Association event in
Uh,
Nashville.
you know,
Yeah, it was the BEC conference, and Chris came up and introduced himself, and we've stayed in touch ever since then. And so was there any point, because you obviously had the moment where you were thinking about doing consulting and then you saw that wasn't satisfying, was there any conscious moment where you realized that not only did you want to be a contractor, but that you wanted to be sitting in a seat like a COO seat and subsequently running large parts of a construction business? When did that happen?
yeah. So I don't know if I've always set out to be the the top or top management. I just have a very specific way of I want things to be done. And historically, these ways have resulted in success, and that success has then brought promotions and things. And in South Africa, um, I was a shareholder and ran some of the company and other companies we started. I don't think the intent's ever been, hey, I want to be CEO or I want to be a VP. Well, the intent is to make us as successful as possible. And I think in that drive to be successful, this is the result, is that you end up getting promoted. Yeah, I mean, I we were having a chat with our shop leadership on Monday morning, and I asked them, and I said, "Do you guys like to win?" And they were nods, like, really like to win. And the only way I win is if we win and the company wins. And that's how we win, you know. And so to answer your question, how do I become CEO? Because I'm relentless in trying to make the team win.
Mm.
And if my shop leads are winning, the company's winning, the bottom line is winning, and yeah, this is how you end up becoming a CEO, I guess. Just relentless pushing for better ways, better scopes, better, you know, just better customer service, better processes, better product.
Mm.
Yeah. I'm not sure if I answered your question on that, but yeah,
Oh, you did.
I didn't set out saying I want to be this role, and it was hell or high water to get there. It was, I want us to be the best we can possibly be, and the result is that I ended up being in the seat.
Yeah. Yeah. It's great. It reminds me of like the internal scorecard that Nick Saban talks about, that you can have an external scorecard of winning football games, or you can have an internal scorecard of working your ass off throughout the year. And the funny thing about the internal scorecard is it usually turns into the external scorecard. But if you're chasing achievement instead of fulfillment or whatever it is that drives you, you're much less likely to get there. And so I've actually asked this question to people on your team, but I'd be curious of your answer. If I asked somebody on your team to describe you, what would they say?
So I had a coaching session this morning, and we were talking about a friend of mine down in Namibia, and we studied together, and then he ended up working with me, and we ended up starting a company in Namibia. And she said, "Well, how would the coach asked me, how would your friend describe you?" And so it's funny,
Mm.
same question now. And the words I used were, and I actually have it written right here, was relentless, ruthless, bit of a dick, driven, doesn't stop, flexible, and generally right. And
Oh my gosh, I love the last one.
yeah, and that probably ties in with bit of a dick, right?
Right, right.
I asked, so at lunchtimes I go to gym, and I asked my engineering manager who comes to gym with me what words he would use, because she had literally asked me this question this morning. So it's funny
Mm.
that she's asking this. And pretty much his were in line with that. The one that he added, which I was like, okay, it's interesting, was unrealistic.
Interesting.
And I was like, well, why would you say that? He goes, it's not that the goal that you want is unrealistic. It's that the timeline you think you can achieve it is unrealistic.
Mm. Mm.
Um, and I was like, okay, it's interesting. So yeah, I mean, I don't know. Obviously, my team here doesn't know my as well as my friend in Namibia who went to college with me. Obviously, we have a couple more war stories and things, different war stories. But I would hope that along the same line as driven and relentless and fair.
Well, fair, definitely. And what's fascinating, actually, the one that might be my favorite in there actually is flexible, that you slid in there. And that is that it's totally my experience too, is that as long as you're brave enough to stand up and talk to you, that you're very willing to listen. Like that's absolutely my experience. And I do think it's a really, you're very weird. You have a very weird combination of attributes in a very good way. Like it's very counterintuitive. I really don't know anybody that fills as many of those categories as you just said, but it definitely shows up. And by the way, you know, depending on the person that you ask, the word optimistic comes to mind instead of unrealistic. You know, it's just That's probably my positive branding on unrealistic, is that some of it is just that you believe that shit can get done, and largely you've made shit happen. And I think one of the things that stands out about John W. McDougall to me is the organizational alignment that you've achieved. You've grown fast, and meanwhile your people are marching in the same direction. It's obvious on LinkedIn, and it's obvious in person when I've been down with you guys. And it might be part of the description for yourself, but I'd be curious, like, how did that happen?
Ooh, that's a tough question. How did that happen? A lot of it is having a vision of where you see the company's going to be, and including people in the decision making of, well, not the decision making, but including people in the conversations about what we want to be and where we want to be, and then letting them do it their way. Um, I think
Mm,
one of my favorite stories is our marketing lady Liz. When she joined us, we didn't know what our marketing role was going to be, and realistically, in the first year of her being here, she probably felt a little bit unguided because I was like, just do marketing. It's just
market
yeah.
for us.
Cool. Um, and I mean, the one requirement I said was do 3 LinkedIn posts a week. She said, on what? Figure it out. This is where we want to be. This is how we want to position ourselves. And she has taken the bull by the horns and done an amazing job. And you mentioning our LinkedIn presence and things like that. I mean, yeah, she gets guidance and, hey, do this, do that. But I mean, the quality of the work and things it's all her. And I feel like that kind of is a good example of the team. Yeah, we set processes. This is how we do it. Here's the welcome letter when we get a new contract. We do a closeout. We do this, but really allowing people to own their own um, individuality in what they do, but still staying true to the core. And then, I mean, what you train on is culture, showing people that you appreciate their efforts, which it helps them align back to what the end goal is. We do team buildings. We have cake day once a month. And that's, in fact, the cake day thing is something I took from Steel Encounters. Every month, Steel Encounters would, all the birthday people would get together in their group, and they would have cake and sing happy birthday and acknowledge the people whose birthdays. And it's such a small thing. Um, and I remember because Steel Encounters had 2 offices or 2 buildings next to each other. And in winter in Utah, you had to drive or walk from the one to the other. And it was like, oh, it's cold, it's snowy, whatever. But it was such a good vibe to go over there and everyone sing happy birthday and you acknowledge the people's names and things. Um, and so that's one
Mm.
of the first things I brought here, which was like, okay, we're going to once a month do cake and we're going to acknowledge people's birthdays. Um, and it's amazing how other people who've seen it, and one of the things they'll say they really like is how the company looks after their people because they do cake day. Like once a month, we spend $250 on cake. Like that, I mean, bigger scheme of things, that's nothing. And, it just adds so much to people's experience of, okay, the company cares. And that adds to their willingness to add their own flair and style and maybe take that extra phone call on their drive home to worry about our customers' relationships and things. So I think I've gone off track here, but how did we keep on pushing? I think it was set the process, have the skeleton, if you will, and then allow people to have their own muscles which connect the main parts.
Mm. Oh, I love that analogy. Yeah, I love that analogy. Yeah, you build out the process, the systems. You've done some awesome work with your project management system that you guys follow. And then you let people be the joints, the tendons, the things that make it all actually stick. Now, and I think that's a great example too that you bring up with Cake Day of the return on investment that you get from $250. It would be so fun to even try to do the ROI on cake at John W. McDougall, because it's probably like we should buy more cake according to that calculation because it's getting us a really good ROI.
Well,
Um,
think about it. I mean, so it's call it 3 grand a year, right? And now let's say out of the 200 people we have here, let's say one person is affected by that, where they feel, you know, they really care about the company. Well, so 3 grand is potentially kept a $100,000 a year PM engaged with the company rather than going out and saying these people don't care about me. I'm going to find another job. I mean,
100%.
we pay far more than that on recruiters to find new people rather than just engaging with people who are here. So yeah, I think the ROI on it is massive.
Yeah, that's cool. There was a study done by Wiley a couple of years ago, just to throw this in here, that it costs between 50% to 200% of a person's salary to replace them. So, when you start layering that into it's substantial. And meanwhile, like, you guys have been on a pretty awesome growth trajectory over the last couple of years, right? I mean, and you're still on an upward trend of growth right now, as much as I see it. I mean, is that how you would describe it?
Yeah, so I mean the John W. McDougall group of companies used to. I mean, we had companies all over the country, and so the revenue numbers were high. Um, Part of re-centralizing in Nashville has been um, changing the way we had companies all over the place and just focusing on the one company. So the revenue dipped when if you take the group of the entire group's revenue, got down to one, and kind of stabilized. But now we're back at that same number that we were when we had 6 or 7 companies. And that's just
Wow.
one company. Yeah. So definitely on a huge growth. Um, Obviously doing well by your customers and having them give you more work and more work and more work's been very, very helpful. Finding new customers. You can't keep on searching for new customers. So yeah, it's mostly been doubling down with the existing customers and getting more of their work. So
Yeah.
it's helped. The market's been pretty good as well.
Yeah. Well, in the data center world, certainly. But yeah, to your point, I mean, filling a leaky bucket. Oh, go ahead.
No, I was going to say I didn't want to say the data center world in case someone goes out and says, "Hey, that's a great idea. I'm going to go after it."
Well, funny. I'll just say this: people are afraid of data center work for sure. I mean, that's a real thing, and it is a great place to be, but it's not for everybody because the deadlines are
Yeah.
severe, and so if you can't, the barrier to entry is very high, and you got to be a well-oiled machine to be able to survive in there. And there's a lot of companies that frankly shouldn't be doing data center work because they wouldn't survive. So I mean, even that is a different echelon. And so I guess with all of this growth and everything that you've experienced and getting back to the revenue of 6 different companies and all of that, I also usually from doing this all the time notice that there's some experience that happens inside of the business that is this messy period where you're creating all of that skeleton and you're creating the foundation for growth.
Mhm.
And so I just wonder, like, since you've been there and from what you've experienced, like, was there a stage like this that had some of that messiness, that there was a lot to work through before you were able to get to the place that you are today?
If we focus on the architectural division, yeah, I mean, in the beginning, setting up, obviously, the getting the visibility, and I know you've heard me say this a million times, but I'll repeat it. I mean, the main thing is accountability, right? You can't have accountability without visibility. So the whole goal was to create visibility. We had the data in a system that was, in my opinion, not very engaging, for lack of a better word. It was just a spreadsheet that was just not fun to look at. So people didn't look at it. So that's what we did. We took the data, pretty much reproduced it in a smart sheet system that we had made in house and got the visibility there so that people could manage their jobs on a daily basis rather than monthly. But yeah, it was turbulent in the beginning. Obviously, people pushed back against change,
Hmm.
but I think once they saw the results, it was a no-brainer. Yeah, even the most steadfast people were like, okay, this checks out. And now, I mean, yeah, we're 4 or 5 years into using Smartsheets. Obviously, Smartsheet has tripled their cost from when we joined, but ROI is still there on the product. And if anything, we're doubling down now and expanding our use of it to get more visibility. And that's why I mentioned when you asked the question about the turbulence, and I said, well, if you look at architectural, I took over the both divisions. Obviously, when I was promoted to COO, and we kind of have that turbulent lack of visibility going on right now in our processing division.
Mm,
Uh, and so that's what I'm trying to um, get the visibility that I need. Yeah, but if the data is messy, I need it cleaned up so it actually makes sense. I have on my board here, um, I want actionable visibility. So
mm.
visibility is great, but if I can't action anything on it, what's the point? So I think in contracting, project management, the visibility on your schedule and your budgets is great because it's very actionable. On a manufacturing side, like we have the visibility into the data, it's too late to change a lot of the things because it moves so much quicker, you know. Uh, and yeah, you can affect change for the future, but how far down have we gone? And are you going to get a bunch of excuses about, oh, that was an anomaly, that's not happening anymore, this happened, that happened, that's why it spiked in hours and things. And so that's why I put an emphasis on actionable visibility. Like, yeah, if my visibility is telling me something that happened 2 weeks ago, I can't really action change in it. So for manufacturing, it's
Mm.
for instant, whereas the contracting side, the on the field side, I feel like the delay actually is easier to work with. Uh, yeah.
That's interesting. That's really interesting. Because I've always had this belief system that construction projects are just manufacturing projects that are totally custom every time and on in somebody else's facility. Where
So
manufacturing, you've got the benefit of being in your own building and it being weather controlled and all of it. So you're such a construction guy. But go ahead, what were you going to say?
I'll say I agree with you in theory. You have far more control over the environment that you're working in as a manufacturer, but as a subcontractor, you're working in an environment where there's so many other people, especially a finishing trade, that are kind of dictating what you can and can't do. Um, and so when it comes to your schedule and your budget, you are, I mean, your budget, you can see, I bought too much material and things, and you kind of have time, I mean, hopefully time to rectify. Um, but it's not going to be like today, all of a sudden, the budget is shot and now you did it because it's a much bigger job. And you're reliant on the GC having things ready and things. So I feel like you can tell, well, if there's no a water barrier on the wall, I'm not going to
Right.
installing panels tomorrow, even if they say you are. In manufacturing, like I find, oh well, the tube laser broke, and I had 4 guys who were supposed to be working on that, and they sat around and did nothing. And now my hours has spiked, my productivity has gone down, efficiency's out the window, and why? What is going on? And I only find this information out 2 weeks later once the hours report. That's where I say I need to have that visibility in the 24-hour cycle so that I can actually change. And um, I feel like
Mm.
that is the headache that I'm trying to work through right now is get that visibility where I can still action change in its when it's still a problem.
Yeah, 100%. Wow. Wow. And so I want to go back to architectural in a minute, but I can't help pulling on the processing thread a little bit here. The what 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 was the first action? What was this winning conversation with the shop leads yesterday? Was that really like the first major action towards overcoming this actionable visibility problem, or is there another first step that you're about to embark on to
Uh,
attack it?
no, so I mean I've been in the role now since January the 1st. I've made a couple. No, it's certainly not the first change. I think it's getting the buy-in from the team as to the changes now. So we've made a couple changes, elevated or moved a couple people around, explain what we want. This is just now, okay, people don't like change, and you know that. Change
Mm,
freaks people out. So now it's like, this is the buy-in stage. Guys, we're doing this. We've lined it out. Now we need you to buy in. So it's kind of the camaraderie piece.
yeah, cool.
I think it's key to have people in your environment or in your network that you can engage with to talk through problems. And in fact, I mentioned my friend in Namibia earlier. I texted him on Monday and I said, I need to talk to you through some work shit. I need your perspective. And on the drive into work, we had a 45-minute call. And his advice was you need to meet everyone in the shop at their level and explain what you're trying to achieve, because otherwise you're just seeming like this overarching warlord who's like kind of dictating all these things, and each person in their own individual capacity is like, well, I thought I did my job right, you have trying to explain the overarching, well, this is the problem. My shipping manager is amazing, and he got a little bit disgruntled. I said, your department is probably the best run department, and when we want to ship something out, it goes. I mean, we have 10 15 semis a day coming out of here, 18 wheelers. But he obviously is part of the group. He
Hmm.
took it very seriously, and
Hmm.
he didn't like the overarching, "This is the problem," but individually, he got it. So I think it's that individual connection that we're trying to build through now.
Yeah. Well, and obviously, while you're in the buying phase, it's not that you're trying to piss people off, but it's funny how good people get pissed off when they feel like things aren't going well. So it even speaks to him that he was frustrated with it because he's like has such a standard of excellence. And so I don't know if this will unearth anything for, the journey that you're embarking on for processing, but going back to architectural, you saw the old spreadsheets, you got Smartsheet put together, you built the skeleton, the processes and the accountability tools and everything that goes along with it. Was there a moment that you remember realizing that you broke through from buy-in to movement to forward progress?
I mean, I'm a numbers guy. When the margin started growing and more work started flowing through, and customers were choosing us over others at a higher price. Yeah, I mean, those all were reasons that I know we were being successful. I think one of my favorite things is when a customer says, you're not the lowest, but I'm going to give you the job at your price because I know I'm not going to have any issues with you. That's what
Yeah.
huge.
Wow.
When your margins, you go in and you're coming out a couple points higher, your PM team's winning. Um, yeah, those were kind of the wins. End of the year, obviously, when that made up goal at the end of the year with the financial
Yeah.
is, and it's all good. Yeah, those are the times you're like, okay, this is working.
December is a nice month during a good year. And then, December 31st starts creeping around and you go, oh, we got to do it all again. Right. But bigger, faster, better, stronger.
Yeah, I mean, I find January is kind of depressing after a really good year because you're like, we have to start all over again from zero.
I know exactly what you mean.
It's like it was so great. I mean, like last year it was so high. It's like just goes back to zero.
Yeah. It is
So,
unfair. It's like very, very unfair. And so, and just, was there, is there anything that you guys have accomplished today that when you embarked on that journey a couple of years ago to put this stuff in place that you just didn't even realize was possible, but now it's part of your reality?
um, I don't know. I haven't really thought about that. I mean, I think the added benefit of the culture side is huge for me. I think if you ask Jeff, our president, he would say that I was a huge culture driver, and on my side, I think the culture was, yes, it had to be worked on, but to me, it was the added benefit of getting the systems corrected. Um, because I'm kind of analytical and things, I wanted the systems to work, and to get people to use the system, we had to fix the culture. But because the systems were working, the culture was easier to fix. If that makes sense. Like you can't fix the culture if the system's broken.
It's impossible to hold people accountable to a standard that does not exist.
Yeah. So I think the added benefit was, yeah, we got the system fixed, culture got better, and in the end, obviously, the architectural division has done better than it's probably ever done.
That's awesome.
But
Yeah, congratulations.
I would say it was unintended because as we started, it was easy to see, and then it became part of the focus. But certainly, the focus when I built out the first smart sheet demo that I wanted to do was get visibility. So, yeah.
That's what it keeps coming back to. And maybe you just answered it in a way, but is there anything that you would say is what you're most proud of that you guys have built there at JWM that other contractors your size have not been able to accomplish?
I'm probably most proud of my team,
Mm.
uh, or the team that we have here, not my team. Yeah, I mean they're the reason I also have been promoted. So the right place, right people in the right bus in the right seat at the right time, knowing when to pull and put people in the right places. Yeah, I think we have a very strong team, and I'm very proud of that.
Yeah, it's fantastic. Yeah, and again, I mean, it's fun getting to, be down there every once in a while because when I talk to your people, they always say that about you, that they like, no, Chris sets the expectation and we all drive to that expectation, and it's a cool thing to hear. They really do, I'm not just saying that for the audience out there. It's a
Yeah.
it's a real thing, or for you, but it's a real thing, man. You're clearly doing a lot of stuff right. And so just along that line of thinking, like if there is contractors, whether they're business owners or ambitious people that want to climb the organization the same way that you have, and if they're still stuck in that place of uncertainty and what's the right next step, maybe in some ways, the place that you're in processing right now and what you're working through, like what do you want them to do once they get off of this podcast? Like what action do you think they need to take to get through that challenging moment?
I refer back to the data. The data doesn't lie. So if
Mm.
you are struggling, not knowing where, let's say you're a contractor and you're not doing as well as you should, or every job's taking a 5-10 point knock, and your guys are working day in and day out, and you just can't seem to break it. Refer back to the data. The data is telling you what's going wrong. If you don't have data, get data.
Mm. Well
Uh,
said.
like it's yeah. Refer back to the data. And it's yeah, get visibility into that, and use that to hold people to a standard. And if you don't have a standard, you still refer back to the data, but then develop your standard at the same time. But if you're not comparing actuals to what you thought you were going to do, um, yeah, I mean, if for example, a schedule, if you don't baseline your schedule and you just keep on moving your schedule, what's the point of having the schedule? You have to baseline the schedule. This is when we thought we were going to do it. This is when we're going to do it. And when you do your post mortem, why did it change? And as the last guy on a building, we all know that we generally start later than we were supposed to, as long as it's good information. But yeah, refer back to the data.
Yeah, that's great. That's great. And so maybe final question. We'll see if your answer sparks anything for me that I can't help myself but to follow up on. But I love your point about bringing data. And I told you coming into today that I can't remember if I already said this on the pod or if it was when we were catching up beforehand. But one of the coolest texts that you ever sent me that I think about a lot was the data allowed me to shine a light. And when you shine a light, people can't hang out in the shadows, which I think is just like a very powerful metaphor for the way to install that kind of rigor in your business of high expectations and like objectivity.
And I think if you don't mind, I'll go into that metaphor. I think it was a conversation or a text, but it was when we made the system, it was like walking into a dark room, right, with no light or very dim light. And when we made the system, it was putting the light on bright. So you took the dimmer off, so now there's less places and less corners for people to hide. And then using the data and the dashboards and things was taking a spotlight and shining it in the cracks. But you can't just get a spotlight if the room's dark. Yeah, you can have a spotlight in the corner, but the rest of the room's still dark. So you have to increase the visibility across the board. There's still going to be, when you turn that light on, there's still four corners. There's still going to be place for people to hide, but there's a lot less places for things to hide. And then you get that spotlight to pinpoint okay, what is going on? And so it's a combination of more data and then using that data with just the spotlight.
It's fun. I love it. And it's funny because even as you were talking, I know you brought up the idea of bringing out the spotlight after you've gone and turned on the lights in the room. But I was having this reflection that what I see in a lot of companies is that the room is dark or dim and they go in with a spotlight. They don't go in with the intention of turning on the lights in the room. They go in with a spotlight with the intention of finding who did this and whose fault this is, and not wanting to see what else is in the room and not caring what else is in the room, but instead just like targeted, almost attacking. And I'm realizing now that that kind of mentality is really subjective. That's what I found, is that it's usually emotionally driven, that there's a person that somebody has decided they don't like or that they're screwing up lately, and they decide to find ways to figure out how to get that person in trouble or to prove their point right or whatever. And your point of continuing to come back to the data really points to being objective, and the data is not going to lie to you. And whether you like it or not, you are not allowed to be emotional in the great game of business, because it will interfere with you. And I think, again, that's one of the parts about you that is very much like, almost, again, it's like hard for me to describe why I find you to be so interesting as a person. But like, you do have fire and energy behind you, but you're not going to go against the data if the data is telling you what the truth is. And I think that's a really good balance. And so with that, Chris Ball, horizon for the future, tell me about your vision of where you want to see architectural and processing go in the next 5 to 10 years.
I think processing, we are limited by the space that we have. So I think we are at capacity in terms of where we're going to go with that. So it's $30 million a year company making parts and pieces, shipping all over the country for large OEMs. Architectural, we aren't limited by that. So realistically, I don't, yeah. I had put a plan together, and it was called The Road to 100 million, and it took a lot shorter time to get there. And so I revised it to The Road to $250 million. And they said, "Why $250 million?" I said, "Because it sounds cool."
It does sound so freaking cool too.
$250 million sounds better than saying 250 million, because even though it's the same number, but $250 million revenue. So getting into doing more glazing packages on smaller jobs. So increasing our scope, so car dealerships and data centers and maybe a bit of ribbon windows and things like that throughout America. I don't have visions of becoming the next Enclose or Crown Core, things like that. I think there's a market below that I really find attractive. Certainly doing more. Nashville is where we're at, and using it as a center of the wheel with a spoken out everywhere. PMs flying around and just offering good service. I mean, I have PMs who live in Indiana, PMs who live in the Carolinas. So just doing more and doing cooler projects. So like, we did a job here in Nashville called Paseo in the Gulch, which is a art installation, very cool project. So we want to do using our machinery that we have in the shop to the advantage on the architectural side. So tube lasers, doing the backup structure, making our own embeds, doing these custom designs of perforated panels. That's kind of where I really want us to go. But I mean, also not forgetting who we are and where we came from. The easy thing is saying, "Oh, we're not going to do any jobs under $1 million." Well, these car dealerships, which are $250,000, $180,000, that's when all our business falls. That's still where we came from all those years ago. And I really like those smaller jobs. I like it as a training ground for our junior PMs. Um, from a risk point of view, I like them because there is less perceived risk with these, having less money with one GC. But I love the big jobs. So we have quite a wide spread. But yeah, just more scope, doing cooler things. The design assist is huge. Drake and Drake's design assistability is getting better and better all the time, but that's where I see a lot of our time and effort is getting in early and helping people, helping architects design what they want. We can give architects whatever they want if we can get in early enough.
Love that.
I remember a meeting I was at where the developer said something, and I said, "I'll give you whatever you want." And he said, "Great." And he looked at his architects and said, "Tell them what we want." And they weren't quite sure, but we figured it out in the end. But yeah, really, we want to give people what they want, and we'll figure out a way to do it. We're trying to design a moving facade right now that we can do an American flag on the side of our building that'll move as the wind blows. So yeah, we're looking at what we can do more with the tools we have.
It's fantastic. Yeah, there's a sales component that I'll summarize that I kind of see as being one of the strengths that you guys are doing right now, which is the only have to have a real ability to add unique value, which you guys do. Design assist, custom manufacturing solutions, perforated panels, potentially kinetic facades. And then you have to actually be better and different than your competition, which again, you guys are capturing there. And then even to your point about the sub-$1 million jobs and what you've got going there. If you want customers to keep coming back to you and giving you work over and over again, sometimes that's the kind of thing you do for them, is take care of whatever they need. So that I'm hearing is like, essential to the sales side. And I think from a bigger business perspective, how I'd summarize what you've shared today is set ambitious goals, clear ambitious goals, whether that's the road to 100 million or the road to a quarter billion, then get buy-in towards those goals, and then set up the structure to be able to collect data and have actionable visibility to act on. And I think all of that is what has, I know there's more, but I think all of that is what has led you into this culture where you've got this massive organizational alignment of people all marching in the same direction. And it's truly very impressive. It's really cool to hear. So yeah, I'm really grateful for you coming on and doing the show here today, Chris. And is there any final shout out, anything that's on your mind, or anybody you want to call out, any issues that are important to you that you want to share before we get out of here?
Oh, but I think one of the major things in my ability to have done what I've done at McDougall with the team has been the support that I've received from ownership. I haven't been micromanaged. I've been kind of said, just get it done. Obviously, there was a time of proof that you have to show that you can do what you say you can do. But if any owners of companies are listening and they're like, well, I put this guy in, he's really not performing, are you letting someone do it, but you're putting crutches on them? Are you slowing it down? Sometimes, yeah, I think a huge part of the success we have has been the fact that I've been allowed to make decisions on the direction we're going with complete buy-in. And I mean, you're training Wiley, who's our fourth generation, and I think you can see it even from him.
100%. Yeah. Well, and it's cool that you're driving that same mentality down to your team too, as you described earlier. So I think that's a great final point. I'll tell you, follow Chris Ball on LinkedIn to anybody that's listening. He writes some great content. Follow John W. McDougall. They put out some great stuff. Chris, I appreciate the heck out of you. I think people must have learned a lot from this. And, thanks for telling us a little bit more about what some of the best contractors in the country are doing.
Cool. I appreciate you, man. Thank you.
Always.